All right. Hi, I'm Andy Bales. I want to give you a quick autobiography of my time here at Union Rescue Mission and on Skid Row. About 19 years ago, I said I worked my whole life to end up on Skid Row, and I finally made it. And I was sincere about that. And let me share just a few stories about how I came to arrive at Union Rescue Mission on Skid Row. I should have been naturally drawn to this work because my own father would travel on freight cars as a child between the ages of 4 and 17 with his dad, and they would live without a home in a garage in Compton or a tent in Azusa Canyon, and I should have naturally been drawn to do this kind of work. But I wanted to be a senior pastor. I came to Bible college thinking I'd be the next Billy Graham, but that didn't work out. I was a youth pastor, associate pastor, Christian school teacher, but I was at age 25. I didn't think I had found my passion yet, and I asked God for help. So in the class, some students were picking on another student who they felt didn't measure up, didn't dress as nice, wasn't quite as smart, and they were calling her a loser and a dweeb and a nerd, those names from the 80s, some of you may remember. I said, knock it off, don't treat somebody like that in my classroom. But I went home, studied my Bible. What could I share to change their attitude? And I shared from Matthew 25, verses 31 and following, that to keep it short, the way you treat another human being is the way that you're treating Christ himself. And at the end of time, we'll be held accountable. If you fed me, if you fed somebody who was hungry, it was like feeding Jesus himself. If you gave drink to somebody who was thirsty, it was like giving drink to Jesus himself. I stretched it. I said, I believe if you say a hurting word to an already hurting person, it's like saying a hurting word to Jesus himself. That was on a Friday. I preached it 6 times, thought I'd change their attitudes. I heard it 6 times. They heard it once. But it didn't change my attitude, because that weekend on a Sunday, I was in a parking ramp, and a guy who was experiencing homelessness, devastated by homelessness, asked me for my sandwich. And I said, no, sir, I'm sorry, I need my sandwich. So I didn't preach. I didn't practice what I preached. And I was disappointed and looked for another opportunity. Well, a few weeks later, I found him on the street and was able to live out what I preached. I fed him dinner. And a few weeks after that, my missions pastor, never hearing that story because I was embarrassed about it, said, Andy, there's a job opening down at the local rescue mission. I think you should go apply. So I reluctantly went to the mission to apply. But when I walked in, the food was good, the place was clean, the guys were sober, and I saw it as a chance to practice what I preached. And I can honestly tell you, my failure to practice what I preached to the kids changed my life. I found my passion. I found my calling that God had lined up for me really before the creation of the world, because I found my passion. I would go out on the streets looking for gentlemen like that gentleman I hadn't fed, and I would go out every Saturday night for about 10 years on the streets to feed dinners, and lives were changed. Well, I was serving men at the mission. I tried to get the mission there to expand to families. They didn't want to. They wanted to stick with men. So a group of churches came to me and said, Andy, we want to carry out your idea. And so part-time, I worked at the mission full-time, part-time. We launched Good Samaritan Urban Ministries, a family program for moms and kids in Des Moines. It went from serving a few moms in transitional housing to serving 156 families, 300 kids in an after-school program, 300 kids at a summer camp, and we dropped crime 51% in that neighborhood. Well, that was about 10 years of wonderful collaboration of 120 churches by now working together, and we made a difference in Des Moines. But then I was comfortable, and I'm never comfortable when I'm comfortable, and a church in Pasadena asked me to come teach them how to reach out to the impoverished people around them, and I accepted the challenge, and I came intending to replicate what we had done in the collaboration in Des Moines, Iowa, of churches making a difference for families devastated by homelessness. But for 5 years in Pasadena, did a lot of good, but kept knocking my head against the wall and getting nowhere. But things happened, things changed. A little bit of a political neighborhood battle caused me to be sitting in my front yard on a paid leave of absence, contemplating my future. And the chairman of the board of Union Rescue Mission came and offered me to be the incoming president and CEO of Union Rescue Mission on Skid Row, the largest rescue mission in the country. And I just looked out at my bushes in the front yard and said, God, you're too good to me. I failed once again to deliver, and you have rescued me. So that's when I came to Union Rescue Mission and said, I worked my whole life to end up on Skid Row, and I finally made it. This was like the epitome of my dreams, to be able to reach and make a difference on Skid Row. And at the time, I intended to cause Skid Row to disappear, to not leave one precious human being on the streets, by regionalizing services throughout the county and decentralizing services on Skid Row. In fact, we had a chant get made up at our board retreat one day: Skid Row must go, Skid Row must go, Skid Row must go. And that's been our rallying cry the whole time I've been here. Well, I can tell you, we didn't make that happen. Skid Row is worse today than it has ever been. We've gone from 2,000 people on the street to 4,700 precious souls struggling and dying on our streets. We're ravaged right now by a mix of meth mixed with fentanyl, and now meth and fentanyl mixed with horse tranquilizer. And we're losing people every day. But we did accomplish one thing. We created Hope Gardens Family Center for our families at Union Rescue Mission to escape the mean streets of Skid Row. We also launched Angela's House in South LA. So we've begun that decentralization of services and regionalizing of services throughout LA County during my time here. Well, that brings us to an upcoming departure, December 31. Last year in October, my wife told me that, Andy, after your next birthday, which is going to be my 65th on October 26th, I'm moving back to hang out with our redheaded grandkids in Des Moines, Iowa, and you can join me if you'd like. Well, I gulped and thought, oh boy, I think she means it. And I tried to duck out of it and say, oh yeah, 2 or 3 years. But a little while later, we were at our Life Builders event. She said, that was a beautiful event, Andy. You guys are changing lives, you're saving lives. It's powerful, it's impressive, but I'm not changing my mind. So I thought, well, I have to alert the board. So I alerted our board of directors to start the search for my successor. And this is not a retirement, it's a relocation, because I've already lined up a job in that same neighborhood where we dropped crime 51% in Des Moines, Iowa, working in a program adjacent to the most at-risk elementary school in Des Moines with an education and feeding program to help children and families in Iowa. So I'm not retiring, I'm just relocating. God has brought me on a tremendous journey. It's been the highlight of my life and career to be able to lead Union Rescue Mission on Skid Row and have so many people join in saving lives, changing lives, and making a difference on the streets of Los Angeles. The lives that have been changed are what lasts for eternity. And that's what we've done here at Union Rescue Mission. We have changed the course of many lives through God's power. God has done it through us. And there will be eternal reverberations of glory because of the work done through us, you and I, and we here at Union Rescue Mission. And I can't thank you enough. Hope you've enjoyed the brief journey that I've taken you on. But none of it would have been possible without your help. Thank you so much.